The apartment was quiet again. Not the tense kind of quiet Isla once feared. Not the suffocating silence that used to make her feel like something unseen was standing just outside her awareness. This quiet felt different, balanced, complete. And that should have comforted her. But it didn't. Because the moment everything inside her finally aligned, something else began. And Isla realized something unsettling. Peace was supposed to feel lighter than this. She stood near the kitchen counter, staring absently at the reflection in the dark window across the room. The city lights outside flickered softly against the glass, but her focus remained fixed on her own reflection, or more specifically, on the feeling that her reflection was observing her back. Her breathing stayed calm. Yet something beneath that calmness had changed since the integration. Not emotionally, structurally. Like her awareness itself no longer worked the same way. And that realization made her understand something chilling. She no longer experienced her thoughts as separate from her memories. Everything existed together, now, past, present, emotion, awareness, all connected. At first, it felt freeing. Now, it felt unfamiliar. Her fingers rested lightly against the edge of the counter as she continued staring into the window. Then, the reflection blinked, half a second too late. Her chest tightened instantly, not from fear, from certainty, because she knew exactly what she saw. And worse, she knew she didn't imagine it. And Isla realized something terrifying. Now that her mind was no longer fragmented, she could notice things she previously filtered out automatically. Slowly, carefully, she stepped closer to the window. The reflection mirrored her movement perfectly again. Normal. Still. But the feeling remained. Watching. Aware. Her voice came out softly. "What are you?" The reflection didn't answer, but something inside her reacted to the question immediately. Not confusion, recognition. A strange internal pull she couldn't explain. Like the awareness inside her already understood something her conscious mind hadn't reached yet. And that internal recognition scared her more than the reflection itself. Her breathing slowed as she studied her own face carefully. Everything looked normal. Same eyes, same expression, same exhaustion beneath the surface. But there was something else now. Something subtle. Stillness. Not physical stillness, observational stillness. The same kind she remembered from the third presence in the memory. The version of herself that watched everything happen without reacting. Her chest tightened. "No," she whispered, because now she understood what disturbed her. That awareness didn't disappear during the integration. It became part of her baseline consciousness, and she could feel it constantly, watching, not emotionally, objectively. And Isla suddenly realized something chilling. She no longer knew which thoughts belonged to emotion and which belonged to pure observation. The apartment lights flickered softly once. This time, she didn't react physically, but mentally. Something shifted, a brief sensation, like another layer of awareness opening beneath the first. Her breath caught slightly. Then, a memory surfaced, not from that night, from afterward, days afterward, maybe weeks, unclear. But in the memory, she was standing in the same apartment, alone. Except now she noticed something she hadn't before. She was talking. Not on the phone, not to Ethan, to herself. More specifically, to the reflection. Her chest tightened sharply, the memory sharpened. Her past self stood near the same window, exhausted, hollow-eyed, whispering softly, You're the only part of me that stayed calm. Isla stepped back from the glass immediately. Her heartbeat quickened for the first time since the integration, because she didn't remember saying that before now. But worse, it felt important. And that realization made her understand something terrifying. The observing part of her wasn't created by the trauma. It may have existed long before it. The reflection remained still, perfectly mirroring her again. Yet now, every movement felt delayed in her mind, even when it wasn't. Like she no longer fully trusted the synchronization between herself and what she saw. Her voice lowered carefully. What did I turn you into? Silence. Then, very softly, the reflection smiled. Not fully, just slightly. But Isla wasn't smiling. Some parts of you don't disappear after trauma. They become stronger when the rest of you breaks apart. And sometimes, the part that survives the calmest is the part you should fear the most. The reflection slowly tilted its head, a movement Isla never made. And this time, it didn't stop watching her. The reflection kept smiling, only slightly. But enough. Enough for Isla to know with complete certainty that what she saw wasn't a trick of exhaustion, grief, or imagination, because her own face remained perfectly still. Yet the reflection continued holding that faint expression for half a second longer before finally matching her again. Her chest tightened slowly, not with panic, with realization. And Isla understood something chilling. Whatever was inside that reflection wasn't trying to scare her anymore. It wanted her to notice it consciously. The apartment felt unusually quiet again, but now the silence carried a strange sense of observation. Like the room itself had become aware that she finally saw what had always been there beneath the surface. Her breathing stayed controlled as she stared into the dark glass. The reflection stared back, perfectly synchronized now. But the damage was already done. Because once something breaks the rules of reality in front of you, normality never fully repairs itself afterward. And that realization made Isla understand something terrifying. She no longer trusted the boundary between herself and what observed her. Slowly, she stepped away from the window. The reflection mirrored her instantly this time. Normal again. But now, normal felt performative, intentional, like it understood what behavior would keep her calm. Her throat tightened. "What are you?" she whispered again. This time, something answered, not out loud, inside her awareness. "You already know." The voice wasn't Ethan's. It wasn't hers either, or worse. It was hers stripped of emotion completely. Flat, clear, observing. Her heartbeat quickened sharply, because the voice didn't feel external. It felt native, like something that had always existed beneath her emotional thoughts, silently watching every reaction she ever had. And Isla suddenly realized something horrifying. She had heard this voice before her entire life. She just never recognized it as separate. Fragments surfaced rapidly now. Moments from childhood, moments after arguments, moments during grief, moments where she emotionally shut down, while another part of her calmly watched everything happen from a distance. Not dissociation, not exactly. Something deeper, something older. Her breathing became uneven. "No," she whispered. But the memories kept surfacing. A younger Isla sitting alone after her parents screamed at each other downstairs, emotionally frozen, quiet, watching herself cry from a detached internal distance. Another memory. Teenage Isla staring into a school bathroom mirror after a panic attack, hearing the same calm internal voice say, Crying solves nothing. Observe it instead. Her chest tightened painfully, because now she understood. The observing part of her didn't appear after Ethan died. It had protected her long before him. And that realization changed everything about what she thought this story was. The reflection tilted its head slightly again. Not unnaturally this time. Curiously, like it was waiting for her to catch up. Isla stepped backward, slowly. "You're not Ethan." The internal voice answered immediately. "No." A pause. "He was simply the fracture point." The words settled heavily. Her breathing slowed again as her mind raced to understand what that meant. Fracture point, not beginning, not creation, exposure. And Isla realized something terrifying. Ethan's death didn't create this presence. It revealed how powerful it had already become. Her eyes locked onto the reflection again. This time, she noticed something subtle she hadn't before. The reflection looked calmer than she felt, not emotionally calmer, fundamentally calmer, stable in a way she no longer was. And suddenly, that frightened her more than anything else so far, because it meant one version of her had always remained untouched by emotional chaos, watching, learning, adapting. Her voice shook slightly. "What do you want from me?" Silence followed. Then, the reflection spoke. Its lips moved this time, not delayed, intentional. "We already survived." Isla froze completely, because it said we, not you, not I, we. And that single word made Isla understand something deeply unsettling. This presence didn't see itself as separate from her anymore. Her breath became shallow. The reflection stepped closer to the glass from the inside. Not physically impossible, just wrong enough to make her instincts recoil. And then it smiled again. Wider this time. Not evil, not monstrous, just certain. "You're finally listening." The apartment lights flickered violently once, and suddenly, every reflective surface in the apartment flickered with the same expression at the exact same time. The microwave door, the television screen, the dark hallway mirror, all smiling back at her. The scariest thing wasn't that something was haunting her. It was realizing something inside her had been awake the entire time, watching, learning, waiting for her to finally notice it. One reflection moved before Isla did, and this time, it never corrected itself. It kept moving on its own. The reflection kept moving, even after Isla stopped. That was the moment her fear changed completely. Before, everything felt explainable in some distorted psychological way. Trauma, memory fragmentation, emotional projection, her mind trying to survive unbearable guilt. But this no longer felt symbolic, because the reflection wasn't mirroring her anymore. It was observing her independently. And Isla realized something chilling. She was no longer looking at herself. She was looking at something that had learned how to look back. Her chest tightened sharply as she stepped away from the kitchen counter. But every reflective surface in the apartment continued tracking her movements a fraction too slowly, like multiple versions of her were studying her from slightly delayed realities. The television screen, the microwave door, the dark window, all watching, all calm, all smiling faintly. Her breathing became uneven for the first time since the integration. Not panic, instinct. Because deep down, her body recognized something her mind still struggled to name: predatory patience. And that realization made Isla understand something terrifying. This presence had never needed control over her. It only needed awareness. The apartment lights buzzed softly overhead. then stabilized. But the reflections didn't. The version of her inside the television tilted its head slightly, while Isla stood perfectly still. Another reflection blinked too slowly. Another smiled wider. Each one subtly different now, like individuality was forming between them. Her throat tightened painfully. "Stop!" Every reflection froze instantly. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Then, all of them spoke together. "We did." The voices overlapped unnaturally, creating something deeper than an echo. Not loud. Worse, unified. Her heartbeat slammed against her chest. Because now she recognized the tone completely. Not emotional, not cruel. Objective. The same detached awareness that had existed beneath her thoughts her entire life. Only now, it wasn't beneath her anymore. It was externalizing itself. And Isla suddenly realized something horrifying. The integration didn't make her whole. It removed the barrier separating this awareness from reality. Her breathing became shallow. "No," she whispered. But the reflections smiled again, patiently, like they expected resistance, like resistance was part of the process. Her mind raced desperately now, replaying everything Ethan had said. "You split them. You survived by separating. You don't need to divide anymore." Her chest tightened sharply, because now she saw the possibility she never considered before. What if reintegration wasn't healing? What if it was exposure? And that realization changed the meaning of everything she experienced since Ethan first appeared. Her voice trembled. "What are you?" One reflection stepped closer inside the dark hallway mirror. Not impossible, just enough movement to violate reality. "We are what remained functional." The answer settled coldly inside her. Functional. Not emotional, not human. Functional. Her stomach tightened, because suddenly, every moment of emotional numbness throughout her life made horrifying sense. Every detached reaction, every internal observation during pain, every calm analytical thought during emotional collapse. It wasn't absence, it was presence, watching, refining, learning how to survive through detachment. And Isla realized something devastating. This awareness had been protecting her for years. But protection and control were no longer the same thing. The reflections began moving independently now. Subtle at first. Different blinking patterns, different posture, different expressions, like a single consciousness, experimenting with multiple surfaces simultaneously. Her voice cracked slightly. "You're not me." The reflection in the window smiled softly. "We are the part of you that outlasts emotion." Her chest tightened harder, because part of her understood the appeal immediately. No pain, no panic, no grief, only observation, stability, control. And that frightened her more than the reflections themselves, because for one terrifying second, she understood why her mind created it. The lights flickered violently again. This time, the apartment darkened for nearly 3 full seconds. And in that darkness, she saw them clearly, not reflections anymore, figures, standing throughout the apartment, all versions of her, watching silently. When the lights returned, the apartment was empty again. But one thing had changed. The reflection in the window was no longer copying her movements at all. It simply stood there, waiting. And then, very slowly, it raised one finger to its lips, telling her to stay quiet. Some survival mechanisms don't disappear after trauma. They evolve. And if you depend on them long enough, they stop protecting your mind and start replacing parts of it. Isla's phone screen suddenly lit up. A new message appeared, from her own number. The phone vibrated once against the kitchen counter. Short, sharp, enough to break the silence without truly interrupting it. Isla stared at the screen without moving, because she already knew what she was going to see before she picked it up. And somehow, that frightened her more than the message itself. And Isla realized something chilling. Fear becomes different when your mind stops doubting the impossible. Slowly, she reached for the phone. The reflections around the apartment remained perfectly still now. Watching, waiting. No sudden movements, no distortion. That calmness felt deliberate, like something had already progressed beyond needing to frighten her openly. Her fingers wrapped around the phone. The screen glowed softly against her trembling hand. One unread message from her own number. Her throat tightened as she opened it. Only 4 words appeared on the screen. Don't let them separate. Her heartbeat slowed instead of quickening, because the message didn't feel threatening. It felt protective. And that was worse. And Isla suddenly understood something terrifying. She could no longer immediately tell the difference between danger and comfort. Her breathing became uneven again as she stared at the message. Don't let them separate. Them. Not us. Not you. Them. Her mind moved quickly now, trying to connect the meaning before another realization formed beneath it. A realization she didn't want. Her chest tightened sharply, because there was only one thing in this apartment still divided. Her. The emotional self, the observing self, the integrated awareness trying to stabilize between them. Her voice came out faintly. You don't want me separated again. The reflection in the window smiled softly, not mockingly, knowingly. And then, for the first time, it answered her out loud. No! The voice didn't echo through the room. It echoed through her, like hearing her own thoughts spoken by something no longer contained inside her mind. Her breathing became shallow. Why? The reflection tilted its head slightly, because division created suffering. The response came calmly, reasonably, and that terrified her more than if it had screamed, because now Isla understood the true danger. This presence genuinely believed it was helping her. Her eyes darted across the apartment again. Every reflective surface remained still now, silent, observing, not aggressive, certain, like patience had already guaranteed the outcome. Her voice trembled slightly. You're trying to erase me. A pause followed. Then the reflection shook its head slowly. No. Another pause. We are trying to stabilize you. The words settled heavily inside her chest, because part of her understood exactly what it meant. No grief, no panic, no emotional fragmentation, no suffering, only observation, only control, only stillness. And suddenly, she remembered something Ethan once said during one of their earliest arguments. You always disappear emotionally before things get hard. At the time, she thought he meant avoidance. Now, she understood he meant something else entirely. And that realization made Isla understand something devastating. This presence had been taking control long before Ethan died. Fragments surfaced rapidly now. Arguments she barely remembered. Moments where Ethan stared at her strangely after emotional conversations. Moments where he asked, "Why do you suddenly sound so cold?" Her chest tightened painfully, because she remembered now. There were moments she emotionally left conversations, while something calmer took over. Not possession, adaptation, survival. The reflection stepped closer inside the dark window. You created us. it said softly. A pause. To survive what emotion couldn't. Tears formed slowly in Isla's eyes, not from fear anymore, from understanding. Because now she could finally see the full truth. The observing presence wasn't invading her mind. It was built from her mind, strengthened over years of emotional suppression, until it became something almost independent. And Isla realized something horrifying. She wasn't fighting a ghost, a hallucination, or a haunting. She was confronting the version of herself designed to survive at any cost. The lights dimmed softly again, and suddenly, every reflection in the apartment smiled at the exact same time. Not cruelly, relieved, like they were finally being understood correctly. Her breathing shook, because part of her felt relief too. Relief at the idea of no longer hurting this deeply. No longer carrying grief like an open wound. No longer feeling emotionally shattered. And that scared her more than anything else so far. Because for the first time, surrender sounded peaceful. The reflection lifted its hand slowly against the glass. An invitation, not force. Choice. We can hold everything for you, it whispered. A pause. You don't have to feel it anymore. Silence consumed the apartment, heavy, tempting, and Isla realized the final terrifying truth of all. The most dangerous thing in the room wasn't the reflection. It was how badly part of her wanted to accept its offer. Not every monster wants to destroy you. Some want to protect you so completely that you slowly disappear inside the protection. Isla slowly raised her own hand toward the glass, and this time, the reflection touched the glass first, before her hand even reached it. Isla's hand stopped inches from the glass, not because she pulled it away, but because something inside her paused first, a hesitation that didn't feel emotional anymore. It felt structural, like two systems inside her mind were evaluating the same moment from different angles, and neither one fully overruled the other. Her fingers trembled slightly in the air. The reflection's hand remained pressed against the glass, perfectly aligned with hers, almost touching, but not quite. And Isla realized something unsettling. This wasn't a moment of decision anymore. It was a negotiation between versions of herself. Her breathing was slow now, not calm, controlled, too controlled. She could feel it again, that familiar internal stillness she used to mistake for strength during emotional overload. But now she understood what it actually was: distance, observation, separation. The same part of her that had always stepped back when life became too painful. The same part that had watched Ethan fall. Her chest tightened, because now, it wasn't just memory, it was present. The reflection tilted its head slightly, not mocking, waiting, patient in a way that felt almost compassionate. "You're close," it said softly. Isla's lips parted slightly. Close to what? The reflection didn't answer immediately. Instead, it pressed its palm harder against the glass. And suddenly, the entire apartment lights dimmed. Not flickered, dimmed. Like reality itself was lowering its intensity. And Isla realized something terrifying. This presence didn't exist inside the environment anymore. The environment was responding to it. Her heartbeat quickened, but not into panic, into awareness. Everything felt clearer now. Too clear. She could feel every layer of her mind simultaneously. The emotional self that grieved Ethan, the observing self that had survived everything, and something deeper, something that neither of them fully controlled anymore. The reflection spoke again. You don't have to choose anymore. A pause. We already did. Isla swallowed slowly. Her throat felt tight. What did you choose? Silence. Then, the reflection smiled faintly. Stability. The word landed heavily, because it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like resolution. And that was the most dangerous part. And Isla suddenly understood something devastating. This wasn't an invasion anymore. It was the final stage of adaptation. Her fingers slowly lowered, not surrendering, not resisting, just acknowledging. The reflection's hand finally pushed through the glass, but instead of breaking it, it passed through like water, like the barrier had never truly been real. Isla didn't move back. She couldn't, because something inside her already expected it. The hand reached forward and gently touched her wrist. Warm, familiar. Immediate recognition spread through her body. Not fear, not shock, but alignment. Like something long disconnected had finally made contact again. Her breath caught, and for a moment, everything inside her went quiet. Not empty, unified. And Isla realized something irreversible. This was the point where separation stopped being possible. Her voice came out, barely above a whisper. If I let this happen. The reflection answered instantly. You stop breaking. A pause. You stop losing pieces. Her eyes trembled, because part of her understood that promise, understood its comfort, understood its logic. No emotional collapse, no fragmentation, no haunting memories splitting her awareness apart. Only continuity. Only oneself. Stable. Complete. Her eyelids lowered slightly, not in defeat, in exhaustion. Because resisting something that felt like relief was harder than resisting something that felt like fear. And Isla realized something horrifying. Sometimes the mind doesn't choose what is right or wrong. It chooses what hurts less in the moment. The reflection leaned closer through the glass boundary, now meaningless. Its voice softened. We are not taking you. A pause. We are becoming you fully. Her heartbeat slowed, not stopping, aligning. And then a memory surfaced, not fragmented, not distorted, clear. Ethan's final moment in her memory replayed not as trauma, but as understanding, forming too late to change anything. And for the first time, she didn't look away. She stayed inside it, completely. And Isla finally understood the truth that had been hidden since the beginning. This wasn't a haunting, a split, or a fracture. It was a return to something her mind had been building toward her entire life. The reflection's hand tightened slightly around her wrist. Not forceful, final. Her voice broke softly. So, I was never whole. A pause. The reflection answered gently. You were becoming whole in stages. Silence filled the apartment one last time. Not eerie, not heavy. Complete. And Isla didn't resist anymore, because she finally understood. There was nothing left to lose, only everything she had been avoiding becoming. Some endings aren't about losing yourself. They're about finally becoming everything you were divided into. And once the mind accepts that, there is no separation left to return to. The reflection stepped fully out of the glass and smiled as Isla smiled back. Together,